Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it's a beautiful day. It's gonna be warm. Skies are pretty clear, but hot and humid today. The farmers around here are in a mad rush to cut hay. It's been so wet and so much intermittent rain that a good portion of the hay around here has not been able to be cut and baled. And now it's getting to the point, if they don't hurry up and do it, it's going to start getting tough because it's been standing so long, lose its nutritional value. So I spoke to a farmer this morning, and as I'm driving, I see tractors everywhere. They're just in a mad rush to try to get some hay baled. Anyways, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. No matter what happens in your life, we need to remember that and give honor and glory to the one that deserves it. So in matters of news, I guess we start off with Iran and Israel. Who knows what's really going on, because it's just a back and forth flip-floppy mess. From what I could tell, the latest news is that one news source is saying that Iran has sent word that they have no interest whatsoever in coming to the table and discussing any kind of ceasefire or anything. And then another news source is saying that Iran has contacted, I guess, the United States and said that they want to come to the table. So who knows? Europe weighed in and said, hey, United States is not in any kind of position in this one to be a peacemaker. And so they're willing to come to the table and try to work something out. I'd say at this point it's still pretty solid on the table of the United States getting involved. There's a lot of propaganda being spread right now that if the U.S. gets over there and bombs that nuclear facility with big bunker busters and maybe does a few other bombing runs, that's not an attack on Iran. That's not war. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. China and Russia do seem to be concerned more with what's happening because they have both weighed in and said that regime change in Iran is not acceptable, not at all. And so if that seems to be more and more of the motive, especially from Israel, who knows what'll happen. We've got Chinese planes flying into Iran quite a bit. No one really knows why, at least they're not saying why. So it's kind of interesting to watch the psyop play out. It's almost, I don't know, it's strange. But yeah, something's going on, and we need to be prepared for it. I mean, I know that sounds silly to say that, but what else can you say in times like this? Some of the things that I was noticing, the FBI released a statement or a report yesterday that they're stepping up monitoring sleeper cells. I know some of you roll your eyes at that. I think it seems to be pretty much common sense that there would be terrorist cells in the United States. There have been for a long time, and there's no evidence that they just all went away and disappeared. But they're worried that, Hezbollah and things like that might become active. And that's not big news. It's just that the news is that the FBI is really stepping up their game, they say, to try to protect, because they're so good at that. They have such an amazing track record of protecting U.S. citizens. They also said that there's intel that a major cyber attack could happen in the United States in the next 30 days because of all of this stuff. So I guess that's another thing on your plate. They like to throw this stuff out in fear, and we're sitting around trying to decipher, does that mean that it's actually going to happen, or are they just using it as a fear tactic, or are they setting the Americans up for a false flag attack? Who knows? And this road is, I haven't driven down this road in a while. It's paved, but good gracious. I think it's worse than some of the gravel roads I drive down. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening, and I don't believe it's any kind of it's appropriate to let your guard down. That doesn't mean that you need to be white knuckles, nails dug into your seats because, you're just anticipating something at any moment. But we need to be in a state of readiness. And I've talked about this for quite a while, that yes, we are preparing. We're preparing for whatever can happen. A terrorist attack, a storm, a collapse. There's all kinds of variables in life that we prepare for. You fall and break your leg and you're off work for a few weeks, but whatever it is. But we really need to be living in a state of readiness. That we are, aware of these things that are happening. We don't know what's going to go on. We don't, have any kind of crystal ball, but it's become very apparent that the world we live in is very chaotic and unstable. And whether it's something that's planned or just some accidental thing that happens, we know that there's ever increasing odds that bad things can happen. And so we need to be living in a state of readiness. And some of you completely understand that concept, you get it. Others, I think, seem to have a difficult time with, what that means. It doesn't mean that you lock down, go crawl in your bunker. That's a whole different thing. It means that, life is still pretty normal for you, but you're much more alert. You're much more cognizant of what is going on around you. You're aware of changes, and sometimes they're small changes that the average person wouldn't see. They wouldn't notice it. You're continuing your preparedness, but it's beyond the phase of I'm just occasionally buying some food or whatever. You're really getting into that mental awareness, that mental preparedness for the potential for something to happen. And I've been telling you now for at least a couple of years that we need to get into that. And some of you might be thinking, well, okay, I've been there and nothing, the world is still turning. It is still turning, but it's obviously becoming crazier. And there has been a lot of things. And while you yourself may not have experienced any kind of major upset or tragedy or chaos in your personal life, many people have. And historically speaking, this is kind of how things go. Yes, sometimes things can just massively erupt, overnight. Most of the time, though, that's Hollywood. Most of the time, like I've said before, you wake up one day and it's fine. The next day you wake up and, the earth is splitting open and a meteor is hitting, or, nukes are landing everywhere. That's kind of more of a Hollywood thing. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just more of a Hollywood thing. What we've been watching over the last 5 or 6 years is really par for course of a complete shakeup of the world as we know it. And we've been hearing about this for decades. Those of you that's been awake to that, you're aware that this is the goal, the way everything is moving. And now we're in that stage where these things are happening. And I suspect they will continue to happen. They're picking up speed. Maybe at some point things will kind of fall off the cliff, so to speak. But the odds are it's just going to continually, incrementally get worse until one day we wake up and we're like, wow, what's changed? This is crazy. Because it's already gotten to that point. I mean, think back 5-6 years ago. How much has changed since then? How much has changed in our world? Our dollar's worth less. We're in way more debt. I think they announced that we've crossed $37 trillion in debt. More laws restricting things, more intrusion of technology in our lives, more acceptance of it. Think about 5-6 years ago, there was way less acceptance of AI and technology and stuff directly in our lives. Now most people are okay with it. It's becoming more and more a normal thing, and so that is the goal, is to keep us moving that direction. And we have to be aware of that and living in a state of readiness so that we are constantly on guard and trying to protect ourselves against these things, and being aware that, okay, if there were a terrorist attack or if there were a cyber attack, how ready am I to just react and protect myself? Goodness gracious. I need to fix this road. That's what living in a state of readiness is. When you're out and about in your daily life, you're aware of things. And they may not be some big, Chi-Com nuke attack. It just may be some bad guy that's doing bad things, because there's a lot of bad people doing bad things. They take advantage of it. They, as evilness spread and chaotic stuff spreads, the bad people come out of the woodwork and they take advantage of the moment. And there's a lot of hatred around the world today. And so we need to be continually in that state of readiness. And I think that for most of you, if you can do that, you're going to be, you may not be perfectly prepared for everything. No one really can be. But you're much more ahead than the average person. And so when things happen, you'll be able to react and to handle it a lot better. And that's really the best thing that we could do right now, because there's so much going on. I mean, it's all the time. And it's back and forth, and it bounces around, and that's happening just to keep us confused, to keep us off guard, to keep us, we're unaware of what's going on. And so, well, maybe I should just give up or just live in a state of fear. So keep your preparedness going, keep working towards preparedness, but start focusing on living in a state of readiness. You can still do the normal things in your life. You're just a little bit more heightened as to what's going on. You're putting more effort into making sure your plans are ready, so that if something happens, you can very quickly and somewhat smoothly switch gears. That's really what we need to be doing. And if we can do that, if you can kind of switch yourself over to that kind of thinking, you're going to be much, much better off. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.